Welcome back to the videos for Learning Goal 1, being able to complete basic forms related to house rental. Video 2 focuses on being able to interpret what a form is asking you to write and being able to transfer information about a rental property into the correct spaces on a form. So for this video, we're going to use this sample property at Kedron when we're filling out our forms. So we'll have a look at it first. It's rented through Ray White. The address is 17 Araluen Street at Kedron. It's $460 a week for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1-car space house. Okay. The name of the lessor or the landlord, so the person who owns the property, is Pierre Bourdieu, and the tenants who are going to be on the lease, we're making these names up, is Michael Apple and Karl Marx. So Michael and Karl have gone along to the open home. They've contacted Catherine, gone along to the open home and decided that they really like this property, so they've put an application in. And Catherine's processed their application, called up their referees, and called them to say that they've been successful with their application. So what we're going to do is look at what Michael and Karl will do with the rest of the paperwork. So what we're going to do in your booklet is the general tenancy agreement definition. Okay, so we're going to look at what a general tenancy agreement is, and then I'll show you the form and we'll do an example of it, and you'll fill that out in your booklet too. Okay, so a general tenancy agreement. A tenancy agreement is a contract between you and a landlord. It lets you live in a property as long as you pay rent and follow the rules. It also sets out the legal terms and conditions of your tenancy. So you can pause now and record the definition in this space here. Okay, so let's have a look at an example of the form. So a general tenancy agreement. This is what it looks like. It's a standard form from the Residential Tenancies Authority. That's the governing body in Queensland who looks after rental properties. Okay, so we're going to go through and fill this out. Now you can fill it out in the form that's in part of your booklet. Okay, so you fill it out as I fill it out on the video. And remember that we're using the property from Kedron as the example. Okay, so the lessor is the name of the person who owns the property. And we know from, I'll just skip back a little. Okay, we know from here that the lessor is Pierre Bourdieu, so we write his name in here. Now you should write in capital letters and in a black or blue pen. Okay, so you write the name in. Remember, you're writing this in the booklet, in the form that's part of your booklet. The address for the service. Now, this is where we're going to write in the address of the real estate agent. So Pierre has the real estate agent manage the property for him. So we're going to write in care of Ray White Alderley, and the address for that is 32 to 34 Sanford Road, Alderley, and the postcode is 4051. You can always pause the video and catch up if I'm going too fast. The telephone number for Ray White at Alderley is 3856 1700. So all of this information has come from the realestate.com webpage. I don't have a fax number for Ray White and I don't have an email address. When you get your general tenancy agreement, that stuff's usually already there for you. Okay, so the tenants. Michael wants to be on the lease and Carl wants to be on the lease as well. Now here the address for the service, that's the address of the property that they're applying for. So it's 17 Araloan Street, Kedron. Oops. So the main thing to remember here is that the lessor is the name of the person who owns the property and the details of the real estate agent. And then item 2 is about the people who are going to be on the lease, the tenant, so that will be you. Okay, so Carl is going to put his email address, so carlmarks@capital.com. Okay, 3.1, the details of the agent. So what you might find is up in this top part, sometimes the lessor might put their own address, so Pierre might put his own address, but often the landlord wants to keep their own address private, so that's why they use the address of the real estate agent. So the agent responsible is, we're repeating the same information, it's Ray White Alderley, and the address, again, it's 32 to 34 Sandwood Road, Alderley, 4051, and the phone number. Okay, item 4, notices may be given to. So these are the people that any information to do with the property can be given to. So the lessor, so to Pierre, yes. He doesn't want it by fax though. Notices can be given to the tenant by email but not by fax. And to the agent by email but not by fax. Okay, address of the premises, again that's the address at Kedron. Okay, inclusions for the premises. So if, for example, you were renting a house that came with some furniture or some kitchen appliances, that might be listed here. But because properties often come with a number of inclusions like air conditioners and so on, we usually say something like, as per entry condition report and inventory list. So that's referring us to a different form that has a lot of detail about what is included. The term of the agreement can be either fixed or periodic. Fixed is when you've got a lease for say 3, 6 or 12 months. Periodic is it's less set in stone. Okay, it might be for a week or a month. Or it might be, every 6 months or something like that. So we're going to have here just a regular fixed term. And we'll say that the date that the lease starts on is the 1st of the 11th, 2015. And Carl and Michael are signing for 6 months, so their lease is going to end on the 1st of the 5th, 2016. Okay, as per the ad, we know that the rent is $460 per week. Now the rent must be paid on we're going to say it's on the 5th day of each week. So that means every Friday, that's when the rent is due. The method to pay is going to be by direct debit. Place of rent payment, so that's where it has to be paid to. It's not very common to pay in cash anymore. We will generally do it direct. You can go straight to the bank, ANZ Bank will say, or internet transfer. And that's probably the easiest. It's probably easiest to set up a direct debit, that way you can't forget to pay your rent. Set up a regular payment. Remember, a rental bond is usually 4 weeks rent, so $460 times 4 is $1,840. So it does cost you a little bit when you move out. You've got to make sure that you've saved up your bond. Item 12, the services supplied to the premises for which the tenant must pay. We have to write yes or no. So the tenant, so does that mean that Michael and Carl have to pay the electricity? Yes. The gas? Yes. Telephone? Yes. Those are pretty normal things that you would have to pay for on your own if you were renting. And usually it will say internet, cable TV are at the tenant's expense. If the tenant must pay for water supplied, in this case we'll say yes, they pay for their own water. Sometimes the landlord will pay the water. Item 13. This is to do with whether or not the house is individually metered. So does that mean that the house has got its own meter on it? If you live in a shared complex, sometimes the meter is all together and it makes it a little bit more complex to work out exactly how much electricity you're all using if it's shared. But for this house, it's not applicable because it is individually metered. Okay, house services must be paid for, so electricity, we're going to pay direct to the provider. Okay, and that's the same for all of them. So that means that as a tenant you pay directly to AGL or Origin or Energex or whatever company you're with. Oops. Direct to provider. Item 15, the number of persons allowed to reside at the premises. Well, it's a 3-bedroom home, so we're going to say that 5 people are allowed to stay at the home. So Michael and Carl might rent out another room and have an extra person in the house. Are there any body corporate bylaws? Body corporate applies when you live in a complex, generally, not so much to individual houses. So we can say no, and therefore 16.2 is not applicable. We haven't been given a copy of the bylaws because there are none for us. Are pets approved? Yes. Pierre's very kindly said that Michael and Carl can have pets. They can have a cat, and 2 of them, and they can have a small dog, but only one of them. Okay, nominated repairers. So if something goes wrong with the electrical or plumbing, who would they go to? We're going to say contact the agent. So if something goes wrong with something to do with the electricity or plumbing, you will contact the agent, and they usually have property managers who deal with that kind of thing. Okay, in your booklet you've got a copy of the standard terms. So I'd like you to pause the video now and have a skim. I don't need you to read it in detail, but you can skim the text. Okay, you can do that mainly by reading the titles, okay? They're numbered, and it gives you just an idea of what kinds of things are included in a tenancy agreement. So pause the video now and have a look through the headings in the standard terms section, and then we'll come back and do the last section. Alright, we're on to part 3 now, special terms. So this is where the landlord can include any extra information that they need you to agree on. Okay? The most common thing is to do with the carpets being cleaned. So we're going to say The carpets have been professionally cleaned prior to your tenancy, and a copy of the receipt has been produced. So you remember, you're copying this into your copy of the form in your booklet. Okay, so we said that the carpets have been cleaned and you've seen a receipt before you moved in, and when you terminate your lease you need to do the same. You need to have the carpets professionally cleaned and produce a receipt for that. That's the most common special term. Remember to pause if you need time to write this down. Okay, the last section, this is where you do your signing. So the name of the lessor or agent will be Ray White Alderley. Okay, and then the real estate agent will sign here and date with the witness, and then you will do the same. You would sign, well, Michael and Carl will sign with the witness. Okay, so that's the general tenancy agreement. That's a really standard form that you would fill in when you rent a property. The next term is a bond lodgement form. A bond lodgement form, Form 2, is used when lodging either a full or part payment of rental bond money for Queensland tenancies with the Residential Tenancies Authority, the RTA. This form should be used when lodging a full bond, paying off the bond, or increasing the bond as a result of weekly rent increase. So you can record that definition under task 4, bond lodgement form. Pause and do that now. Okay, let's have a look at a bond lodgement form. So remember, bond is usually 4 weeks rent, and that's sort of protection for the landlord in case something goes wrong. If you terminate if you don't pay your lease, don't pay your rent rather, or if you damage the property, they can apply to use the bond to recover their costs. So looking at the second page, you've got a copy of this in your booklet, so we're going to go through together and fill it out now. So the names of the tenants. We know that we've got Michael Apple. Oh, it's the last name. Apple Michael. Now Michael and Carl went 50-50 in the rent, so they each, the bond, so they each paid $920. Okay, and we put in their number. And then Mark's Carl also paid $920. Oops. The residential address, that's the address at Kedron. Remember, the lease started on the 1st of the 11th and went until the 1st of May. It's a house. There are 3 bedrooms. The property is managed by a licensed real estate agent, so that's Ray White. So, the agent details: Ray White Alderley. The address for that. Phone number. the weekly rent and bond payment. So the total bond payable was $1,840. The weekly rent was $460. And in this case, we're going to say that Michael and Carl have paid their whole bond up front, so they've paid the $1,840. If the lessor is the tenant's employer, has the tenant been given a rent subsidy? That doesn't apply in this situation. If you move from one rental home to another, you can apply just to have your bond transferred rather than getting it back and then lodging it again. We're going to pretend that Michael and Carl haven't rented before, so we'll say no. If they had, they would just use their bond number to transfer the bond. And then they sign and date. And that gets lodged to the RTA. So remember, the purpose of the bond lodgement form is so that your money is protected. Okay, it gets kept with the Residential Tenancies Authority. And then if the landlord wants to use your bond for paying rent or for repairs to the house, they have to apply. They can't just use it for anything. So you are protected. That's the bond lodgement form. Next is an entry condition report. That's a list of any marks, damage or issues with the property. It will protect you when you leave the property, so you get your full bond back. Make sure you take photos and comprehensive notes. It is usually to be completed within 3 days of the lease's start date. So we're going to write that definition in task 5, entry condition report. So go ahead now, pause the video and record this definition. Let's have a look at an entry condition report. Alright, so it looks like this. Oops. Okay. So you fill in the address of the rental premises, the name of the tenants, the name of the agent, the water. So every home's got a water meter. So if it's just an individual house, it will have its own meter. We can say yes. And then you go out and you read the meter. So the meter's got a number on it. So you go outside, open up the meter and record the number that's on the meter. Are the premises water efficient? So that means, does the shower have a water efficient hose and that kind of thing. Okay, so every page has to be initialed by the lessor and the tenant. This is the main part of the entry condition report. So if there was something wrong with the property, so say the wall had a small hole left of entry, say. So it's organised by room. There's the entry, the lounge room. So the lessor, so the landlord goes through and records any damage that they note, and they have pictures of it. It might say tear in curtain, for example. So you would go through and tick it off. It says insert yes or no. So you'll go through and tick yes, that's all there. If you come along to the kitchen and you notice that the stovetop is really rusted but there's nothing written here, you write in here, significant rust to stovetop. Okay, and then the lessor or the agent will go through and verify that. Make sure that you take photos. So this is something that you have to do really meticulously when you move into a house to make sure that you protect yourself when you want your bond back. So it's quite lengthy. Laundry, general. All rental properties should have smoke alarms and they should be serviced. Okay, and then you sign at the end of it. So that's an entry condition form. We're on to the last one now. A notice of intention to leave. So the tenants give a notice of intention to leave, a Form 13, to the lessor or agent when the tenants want to vacate the premises by a certain date. So when you are ready to leave a property, you have to give notice. And let's have a look at that form. It's fairly easy. So the name of the tenant, so we put Michael and Carl. We put the name of Ray White Alderley. We put Araluen Street. Okay, now is the notice being served with or without grounds, so with reasons? This is mostly relevant if you are applying to leave out or within your lease. So if you signed a lease for 6 months and after 4 months you want to leave, you would need to have very strong grounds for leaving. You're breaking your lease. Otherwise, if you've signed a 12-month lease and in the 11th month you're giving notice that you'll move out at the end of the lease, you don't really need grounds for that. Here is where you would put down the grounds for leaving. And that's mostly relevant if you're leaving within the lease. Your forwarding address, you write down where you'll be next so that you could be contacted. The date that you're giving your notice, and then the date that you will vacate the property, and then you sign. So that's something that you would give to the agent when you're ready to leave. Okay, so let's go back and have a look at this learning goal. So the purpose was to be able to complete basic forms related to house rental. You now know the basic rental language. We've looked at how to interpret what a form is asking you to write, and we've looked at how we transfer information about a rental property. So from the advertisement, how we've taken this kind of information and put it onto our forms. If you think that you're ready, you can get the formative task from me now. Once you complete the formative task and you've shown that you can complete basic forms related to house rental, you can move on to learning goal 2.